Welcome back. Well, our special guests on Left, Right and Centre tonight are the authors of this new book, Dangerous Minds, 8 riveting profiles of homegrown terrorists. Hussain Zaidi and IPS officer Brijesh Singh have come together for this book, which is now available for pre-order. It delves, as it says, into the complex and intricate lives of some of the most talked about terrorists in the country. Well, we all know Hussain Zaidi from his previous work. He's been a crime writer and a journalist for years, the author of several best-selling books, including Black Friday and My Name is Abu Salem. Brijesh Singh wears multiple hats, as an IPS officer who's also now the head of the cyber police and is also apparently a really good cook. Great to have both of you on the program tonight. Hussain, let me ask you first. It's interesting in your introduction how you talked about the reason why you wrote this book, and if you could explain that in some detail. You've talked about the birth of the idea of the book because you felt the need to unmask terrorists by telling their stories. Explain.
See, for me, it's a very different territory. I have been writing about organized crimes and mafia, but I realized that there are people who have been perpetrating terrorist acts and, they have no qualms about it. For them, it was a service to God. The basic problem about their work is that they feel that they're right, but what actually they are doing is a disdain to human lives, which is a creation of God, the very God that they worship. So, for me, I thought that somebody should expose their convoluted mindset. Somebody should write about the warped mentality which is there in the deep recesses of their psychology. So I spoke to Brijesh and I bounced off this idea, and Brijesh was equally excited about this. So we thought that we will team up, we'll collaborate together and ensure that we come up with a very different kind of book, a different kind of work which will explore some alternative which has not been unexplored yet, which has not been discussed or rivaled yet, and that's how this idea of the book was born.
Mr. Singh, if you could tell us, it's very interesting as an IPS officer that you've also chosen to co-author this book and really delve into the minds of these terrorists. And, at this time in the country, we see every other day headlines about ISIS and the way, it is trying to influence young minds, particularly through the use of the internet. Do you think that today that is the biggest challenge for law enforcement officials, this radicalization through the internet? Is it something that you can even control?
So this is not the first time that I'm writing. I wrote a
fertile.
Sorry, this is for Mr. Brijesh Singh. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Singh.
I wrote a novel called Quantum Siege for Penguin. And this time Hussain and I teamed up to write about the mindset of a terrorist. We have seen these cases as cases, and Hussain has dealt with a lot of these things as while reporting as a journalist. But there's this whole aspect of transformation of individuals. How these people who used to be like you and me, very normal people, how suddenly one day they transformed into these murderous beings which they turned out to be. Now, it is very interesting to delve into this mindset and to understand what are the factors, what is happening in their lives, which is transforming this normal, healthy individual into this sick person who has no qualms taking away lives. So that was primarily one of the reasons why I and Hussain teamed up to write about these riveting stories.
But the fact is, today, you're looking at cybercrime on the net. Again, I come to that question about whether you feel it's even possible to control the radicalization of young men, perhaps women, through the internet. How do you do it?
I think if you look at any of the terrorist movements, right from left-wing extremism to any other terrorist movement, the basic thing is mobilization. And the internet has made it very easy for people to anonymously mobilize young minds, people who are vulnerable, to mobilize them and ask them to rally towards a cause. This is presenting a great challenge all over the world. So earlier you needed to, let's say, spot talent, identify it, groom that talent, train it. Today all this training material is available on the net, and you can anonymously contact people, the internet can be used as a medium of dissemination of knowledge. From there to even communication, even tactical communication can be done on internet and various encrypted platforms. So internet that way is a great enabler, and it's very difficult. I have spoken to my counterparts all across the world, and they find internet to be a great challenge as far as terrorism is concerned.
Hussain, you've written also that that you feel that the Prophet has not only been misunderstood in your words, but also maliciously maligned. And do you see that more and more in conversations that you have in the context of, let's say, growing terror attacks, for instance, in Europe right now? Do you see, people having a very sort of narrow view of what Islam is, not really understanding what Islam stands for?
See, I realize that the terrorists are more angry because they are realizing that the spiritual leader, Prophet Muhammad, has been very insensitively attacked by these groups. He's been ridiculed, he's been caricatured, and they are trying to highlight those portions in Prophet's life which were non-existent. For example, they've even gone to the extent of him being a womanizer, God forbid, and those kind of other accusations which they've hurled at him. Now, I tell you, only Muslims have more respect and regard towards their Prophet than their own religion. I mean, if you criticize Islam and its flaws, they are okay with it. They will not get violent. For example, if you talk about the flaws of the Islamic precepts, they are fine with it. But if you talk about the flaws in Prophet's personality, then they are very unforgiving. And for them, they realize that recent phenomenon is that Americans and Europeans, whether they are the cartoonists or whether they are the writers, they have decided to attack more on Prophet and his personal life, which is what has enraged them. Now, they could, deal with this by writing articles or by giving speeches and in a different way. But, this has become a main fodder for the terrorism. So they realize that they can instigate the youths to treat this as an insult to the religion, as an insult to Prophet, and it becomes very convenient for them to make them terrorists and organize attacks.
Well, I also found, the profiles that you've done extremely interesting. And, for instance, you have Dr. Jalil Ansari, the doctor from Malegaon, involved in 80 blasts. And that was what Mr. Singh was saying as well, that many of these people, for instance, you have a Bangalore-based techie as well, well-educated, from good backgrounds, seemingly good backgrounds, who've sort of become completely radicalized and become terrorists, Hussain. Again, when you delve into this issue of, as you call it, dangerous minds, what drives people like this to the dark side?
See, education has got nothing to do with terrorism. My whole issue is that the more educated you are, it's easier for you to become a terrorist, because you understand the ways of the world and you realize that with your education, with your background, you can be a much better soldier of their so-called Islam and their so-called understanding of Islam. So for them, they become the soldier of Allah, and for them, they use all their education and all their background in ensuring that they can give service to the religion. So whether it's Dr. Jalil Ansari, because he, despite being a medical professional, was spending more time in his clinic only figuring out how to promote Islam, how to disseminate the teachings of Islam, and how he can be a good servant to Islam. Similarly, those techies and those wizards who have done so much in technology and internet, they realize that they can use this as an instrument, as a weapon for helping Islam.
All right,
so education,
yeah, you're right,
cannot be a tool of revolution for them.
Absolutely, and actually since 9/11, I think it's been demonstrated that some of the most educated can actually end up going to the dark side, as I said, and taking to terrorism. Thank you to you both for joining us tonight, and all the very best. The book will be, as I said, it's already being pre-ordered, Dangerous Minds by Hussain Zaidi and Brijesh Singh. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.